guys, welcome back to the Learning Gardener channel. We are inside a room that I am going to be painting later today, hopefully, all things going according to plan. But first, we've got to deal with all these terracotta pots. So there's even more behind the camera, and these I'm going to be turning into more Ollas. If you've seen any of the recent updates, you'll know that recently I got a couple of Olla pots for my birthday, and I bought myself a couple, and I planted them in our veggie garden beds out the back, just to test them before I put in the effort of making a whole bunch. And essentially, it seems kind of crazy because those Olla pots are quite expensive. They're about $50 for a 3-litre pot, and these are $2.36 each. But you've also got to get something to seal the bottom, the corking gun, the silicone, and it's also the time involved and whether I have the skill. But I just wanted to see whether it would work, and my mum wanted to get me something for my birthday that I wanted, so I was like, well, let's try an Olla pot. Now, we are in the early stages of spring. It is, where are we up to? The 23rd of September. I should know that because it's Birdie's second birthday today. So we've just got back from being down at the beach celebrating with a chicken breakfast with our friends, which is very exciting because it's the first birthday that Birdie's had someone she's loved celebrate with her, because she was in horrible places last year. Anyway, but so I've tried these Olla pots, and generally it's been very cool still. So we've been like a bit sad we ran out of firewood, dried firewood at home. But then last week, out of nowhere, we had 35-degree days for a full week, which is like full-blown summer temperatures. I think it's about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was just out of nowhere, just hideous. And now it's back to freezing cold, and I'm wearing jumpers and I'm actually cold still. But what I noticed was the plants that would normally have really suffered in that heat, because they had the Ollas, they did really well, and they look totally fine. And in fact, after I've done this, I'm going to go out and harvest some amazing plants, including some huge broccoli, which I'm really excited about because I've never successfully grown broccoli before. But what we're going to do is we're going to see if this works. So what I picked up was some little chair leg floor protector things, because they look like they were about the right size to fit into the hole at the bottom of the terracotta pots. They're a bit tight. Oh, that one doesn't even fit. So I might have to actually put them inside and silicone around them, and hopefully that works. I don't really want to go and return them and then have to think of something else. So hopefully we can make this work. But then the idea would be that I glue this, I mean, it's obviously not the right size, but I would glue two of them together and silicone seal them up so they're watertight. And then the only thing poking out the top of the soil would be this top, and then I can just pop off the chair leg, fill it up with water, and then pop that back on to minimize the evaporation, and let my plants send their roots really deep into the soil, down to where the Olla is, where it's releasing the water. So that, number one, it is a more consistent moisture level for the plants, but also so that they're not getting potentially diseases like rust or blight or things like that, depending on the plant, from overhead watering. But also so we're just being way more efficient with our water use, given that we are going into a very hot and dry summer. So that's the plan. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it will. The silicone's going to take about 24 hours to fully dry before we can test these pots. And if you're going to do this at home, you definitely need to use unglazed terracotta pots so that the water can seep out through the terracotta slowly. The idea is that because the water is traveling into the soil, it leaks out through the terracotta really slowly, and so the roots of the plant are attracted both to the Olla itself and attracted deeper, because the water is coming out much deeper rather than being a superficial level of watering and only having that top inch or so of your soil wet. It also allows for more consistent moisture, so when you're looking at things like tomatoes, then they're less likely to split open because your water levels aren't up and down all the time. This is, as far as I'm concerned, a much easier irrigation method than learning how to do irrigation tubing and having to deal with timers and all of that sort of stuff on so many garden beds. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a great and nice and theoretically cheap solution, but we'll see how we go. First thing I'm going to do, apart from having lined up all the terracotta pots, which I'm hoping will work, is I'm going to take the chair tips and I'm going to take them out, and I'm either going to silicone them into the hole or have them, turn this over, have them sitting in and silicone around, and then from there I will then silicone that one on top of this one, and then just leave them there like that for 24 hours to set. So that's the plan anyway. I don't know if it'll work. We're about to find out, but let's get to it. It's going to be a little tricky to film because I did forget my tripod, but we need to get this done, get the veggies harvested, get these walls painted. So let's get to it. So I just had to stop because my builder came on a Sunday just to check where things are at. So that was nice. So we're getting a nice seal on these. I might not do all of these now because the sunlight in this house makes it tricky to paint after a certain time, and I've got so much painting to do. But I also have some plants that are going to get planted, and then I want to get these Ollas in before I plant this plant, so I'm minimizing the disturbance to the roots by popping these in. I think what I'm going to do is cut the tip off the nozzle to make the hole a little bit more open, to make this easier to push through. Nice thing about my builder is he's a lovely bloke, but he has a kid with a lot of allergies. So I figured, seeing he's here on a Sunday, you know, helping me out, I'd send him home with a nice organic broccoli. So that's one less for me to harvest later. They're all done, all equally messy, and I'm gonna let them sit here for over 24 hours to fully set, and then we'll give them a test to see if there's any leaks before we bury them. It's 10 days later and we are inside in the middle of construction chaos, but it is time to test the homemade Olla. So we've got 4 of the 14 we made inside. We've got, I think, most of the different shapes, and some of them obviously have a lot thicker silicone than others, but mostly what I've done is bring the ones that don't have as much silicone on them, or I can see like teeny tiny gaps in places inside. I don't think I'll test all 14, simply because there's just not enough hours in the day. And I really need to get these in the ground. We had another 36-degree day yesterday, which is towards 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not quite, but it's close. And like, it's still the first month of spring. I think today is 1st or the 2nd of October. It's just out of control, and we're having another one tomorrow. And obviously I am trying to madly paint the house before the flooring gets installed. So I did even paint yesterday, and technically today's a perfect painting day, but I'm gonna get these in the ground for sure. But I'd love to spend the day in the garden, but we'll see how we go. So anyway, let's test a couple of these. Hopefully they aren't leaking. So what I'm looking for is if I put some water in, do they leak out of here, and do they leak out the bottom? Because then what we'll do is, if they're good, we'll bury them up to the very top and mulch around the top, and they'll just have a little stopper in here. So let's get going. And before we do this, I just have to apologize because all of my camera gear, because we're in moving chaos, I am missing one component of the tripods. So apologies for the not so fabulous camera angles, but life is mad right now. There's nothing coming out the bottom, and nothing coming out the side, so that's a win. I think even though a little bit of water came out of one of them, I think it's going to be totally fine. It's going to work for the purposes, and it's like, oh, there's still some in there. $2.30 for each of these pots. So comparison to the $50 Ollas. Obviously you've also got the silicone and the door chair leg protector, floor protector that you're using on the top where I am. But it's still a massive difference between the $50 and this. So I still think even if they're not perfect, they're going to be good enough. And it's certainly going to be a massive help on days like tomorrow, where it's going to be 36 again. And if this is how hot spring is going to be, then summer's going to be so bad. So yeah, we'll see how we go burying these. And I'm probably going to make more, to be honest. I think probably also the problem with this one is you can see it's not really well lined up. So there's like a little step down here, but whatever. It'll do, and I'm sure it'll work. I have faith, and we're going to go and get this in the ground. While I'm doing that, I'm also going to do a soil acidity test, because just the difference in the garden beds that I bought, the expensive veggie mix compost bulk versus that first bed that I just put store-bought bags of veggie mix in, like in terms of growth, is huge. And the pH on the stuff that I bought that was the veggie compost was so high, it was so alkaline, so I want to see if it's come down. Oh, there's also a bit of a crack on this one, maybe that's it. Anyway, whatever. So I want to retest the soil, and I've got some worm castings I want to put in just to try and, I don't know, help the produce in any way I can, just to kind of put some more amendments in there and make the soil of more nutritional value, seeing I can't really do much about the acidity now there's plants in there. What I might do is when I dig out to bury these, I might put a little bit of sulfur in the bottom, just to change what tiny amount of acidity I can. And I picked up this morning a ton of coffee grounds from the local cafe, because they had heaps this morning because of the public holiday and all the tourists coming to town. I kind of wanted to take all the bags, but I didn't. But let's go put these in the ground. The reason I think some of the growth differences between this sort of soil and the one in this one might be down to the soil rather than the water is because none of these, oh, this bed has a has 2 Ollas in it, but this one doesn't, and it just did so much better than everybody else. It's not that things look bad. I mean, I've never had success with cabbage or with broccoli, and I've harvested the big broccoli you can see from in here. We did that together. It's just a sneaking suspicion that it's not all down to water, and that a lot of it is actually down to the soil nutrition. So let's see if we can do something about that. Even though these broad beans, it's now too hot for them to actually achieve anything, and even though root crops like beets can't use the Ollas. I'm planning on putting either some beans or some tomatoes in this bed later today. So I've popped one down near the zucchini and one at the other end. I think I need another one in the middle, but we'll see how we go, and I need to get more pots. I have popped one in this bed because again I'm going to be planting more in here hopefully later. Again, it's too late for the broad beans, they took too long to come up and it's been way too hot this spring. But I plan to plant cucumbers here and here, and also these collies look like they haven't yet formed heads, so I thought it was more important to give them an Olla than to put one over here where I really wanted one, because this broccoli is nearly done, but this collie is the only one who hasn't produced a head. Well, that one hasn't, but it's doing something strange. It looks like it's trying to bolt because of the heat, and the same with this one. So I mean, I don't think these will last long in the bed. A lot of the collies have really failed to do anything, and I think that's just because of how hot it's been. I did try a technique to blanch them. I don't think it made any difference at all. But anyway, so let's see where we place the other ones. So again, this is a bed that's hopefully going to get planted up soon. So we've got one big one down near this collie, hoping that it will achieve something, and one down here, even though I'm going to be snipping these broad beans off and adding them to the compost bin before they get a fungal disease like some of the other ones in this heat. We already have some Ollas in this one. And this is our new Super Roma tomato bed. So these are Super Romas. We have a whole stack of marigolds, some basil, and a bunch of capsicum at the back. So I thought I'd plonk 3 in here to make sure we've got some good coverage, as we also have some asparagus. But yeah, I want to get some good coverage in here before these grow up nice and big. It is harder, obviously, to put them in once things are big, but let's try and get them in so that summer can be more successful. When I last tested this, it was at least a 9. I think we've maybe come down to an 8.5, but we definitely need to deal with the soil acidity whenever I have the chance. This is very depressing.